bringing us right on along to F2.
And here tonight we have Mr. Olson and the finance team to give us a report on the request to the Contra Costa Board of Supervisors to set the tax rate. Mr. Olson. And that is not it.
Thank you, Dr. Harder. I'm Dave Olson of K&N Public Finance. I'm here with other members of the financing team, Jeff Barata of Piper Jaffray, Scott Henry from E.J. De La Rosa, and Brianna Abrams from Stradling Yaka. Last week, or 2 weeks ago, at the last meeting, we made a presentation regarding the tax-based growth or negative growth this year and the impact on 2013-14 tax rates. One of the things we talked about in that presentation was bringing back a resolution to establish tax rates at the targeted maximums for 5 of the 6 bond measures that the district has bonds outstanding under. This summarizes that resolution, I think, with a couple of key facts here, that we've been proactive for a number of years in establishing these tax rates. That started when tax-based declines caused us to be concerned about the possibility that in the out years it was possible we'd exceed our target maximums. So we wanted to start to get strategic about that. We've been meeting with the county on a regular basis. They've appreciated those meetings, but this is the first year that you'll be passing an official resolution on that. So as I said, and as we said 2 weeks ago.
Can I ask a question, though, because I looked at it. Why does the Measure E have an NA, not applicable? I went back and they said fluctuate. I saw your follow-up slide, but you don't have a target that you want to set for it?
The Measure E tax rate has been well below the target maximum. The debt service moving forward is level, and so we have no desire to set that at a higher rate at this point, obviously.
So why don't you just eliminate it from the slides in the future and not have it even presented? Because it's not really something that is a concern.
I think the idea of the slide was to be comprehensive in terms of the number of measures, but you're right, it's certainly not mentioned in the resolution as having a target rate. So we could go either way, and if it's the board preference that we don't discuss it,
I just don't like when people put not NA. They say not applicable. There's something applicable, and so there should be some number to it. It doesn't matter, though.
Okay. So the target tax rates are shown as well as the requested tax rates. There are different strategies, as we say on the next page, around 3 separate strategies that we're employing for the 98 Measure E that we just talked about, because we're below our targets by a good distance and because we don't have any threat from escalating debt service. We're going to the county will just set the tax rate at whatever level it takes they think is appropriate to pay debt service on that. The 3 middle bond measures, the 2000 Measure M, the 2002 Measure D, and the 2005 Measure J, we want to set at the target maximum. In this case, we're going to be bringing some money from the tax rate stabilization funds in to keep that to keep the tax rate at that target maximums. If we move into the future with those programs, I think it can go either way. So if we move into the future of those programs and the target tax rate creates sufficient, there's enough escalating debt service in the future, we'd want them to set at the target maximums anyway. With those 3 programs in particular, we've been at very stable tax rates, as we'll show on the next slide. And with Measure D and Measure E, the 2 most recent bond measures, we want to make sure we don't get into that situation in the future. So we're recommending targeting at the maximum rate and establishing debt service for this October sale that will use up as tax collections in that year. So there's 3 strategies going on, but basically the concept is we want to be proactive. We want to pay off as much debt as soon as possible. We want to put ourselves in a position where we have some insurance against future uncertainty. Some notable impacts, some key facts, just to make sure we're all on the same page, not some of the discussion can get going and miss some of these points. But any excess collections will stay in a debt service fund that will go to benefit of taxpayers. So anything taxpayers are paying now, taxpayers will get back in the future. The second one we say here is that the 13-14 tax rate will be an increase over the 12-13 tax rate on a combined basis. So that's clear. But that's primarily, as we say in the third bullet, primarily because of the new debt service for 2012 Measure E and for the increase in 2010 Measure D from the issuance of the new bonds. It is not a factor of the decline in assessed values. That impacts us in other ways, but it's not causing the tax rates to increase this year.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, but I'm also concerned because when these stories are written up, it's and I get emails, it's just clear you have to think about how you frame the issue. It's not an impact that they're not willing to pay. So it's really not an impact. It's their expectation. Impacts deal with things that are unknown. Mm-hmm. They said they would pay $48 for Measure
2012 Measure E, yes.
So when you say it's an increase, actually it's not. It's what they expected to pay. Mm-hmm. So I don't like it because it wasn't a decrease, it was a savings when we did it last year with 2010 Measure E. So when you say it's an increase, it's really not accurate. It's what they expect to pay. So it's like saying I bought something and I said I'm going to pay $10 today because it is, but I know in the future I'll pay $20. It's still what I expected to pay. So an increase gives the perception as if something is rising, that they didn't. This is what they expected to pay. So the savings expired, but it was what they expected. It's like they got a rebate on their car, but they now are paying the note that they expected to pay. So in the future, please don't characterize it as an increase. It's not. It's what they anticipated paying when they voted for these measures. It's not an increase.
I can appreciate the...
It's just not. It's what they expect to pay. If they pass a measure, that's what they expect to pay.
Yeah, I appreciate where you're coming from, and I try to balance that with the last bullet in the next slide. We are clearly within what the target maximums were at the time of the election. So that is also true and maybe the primary point. It's certainly the point that we've emphasized the most. It should be the only point.
It shouldn't be the primary point. It should be because it's an increase if you go and exceed beyond what you're asked to pay. There's districts all over Contra Costa County that people paid in excess of what they were expecting to pay. That's how it should be characterized. Are they paying in excess of what they're expected to pay? That's really how it should. They're not paying in excess.
That makes sense to me, and that's shown on the next table. That we've had not only stable rates, but rates that have been below the target maximums. The amount that each measure, and I use the term target maximum, and maybe I should be clear on that when the voters vote on a new bond measure, the district represents what that bond measure will cost, and that amount is the maximum tax rate target in the left-hand column. As you see, for the last 5 years, we've been very stable and at, or in some cases, below that target maximum. So that's a fair point.
Modification to this, because I see it already on page 6. And it referenced back to page 2. You've put a targeted amount for Measure E in there, $13.50. I see that's the number that should go in there, not in A.
Well, we're not making a special request to the county. County will set that tax rate, and because of how we have worked our projections, it's likely to be at the $8 or $10 range.
Yeah, but okay, I'll leave it alone. I just don't like the NA because you're putting a number here, so it looks like that's what they're expecting it to be. But anyway, so go ahead.
Okay. So we have had stable target rate below the expectations, below what has been indicated at the time of the elections. And we'll see in a second, we've done that for, I think the count is, sometimes I miss the number, but I think the figure is 47 out of 47 times. And they're all listed here on this on this slide on page 6. And what makes that remarkable is the fluctuations in assessed value that are shown on the next page. All of this fluctuation has come since the last bonds were issued under 2000 Measure M and 2002 Measure D, and all of those measures. And you can see if we had simply grown at 4%, which is below the historic average, we'd be at $34 billion tax base rather than at the $22 billion today. So as we're building these programs that kind of count on growth, the decreases affect us from both ends. So this slide, I think, gives a good indication of what the impact has been. We're 30% lower of where we would have been, where we expected to be, but we're still keeping tax rate at the target levels. So the next slides say that as we've gone through this, we've used a number of different tools. Just to review, we've used some bond proceeds to pay down issued debt. We've done some restructurings, both for savings and we've done some refundings, both for savings and restructuring purposes. We've set up these tax rate stabilization funds, met with the county, and we built into 2012 Measure E a specific purpose to stabilize the tax rates if necessary. So that will be a choice of a board at some future time. We haven't done any of that yet with 2012 Measure E. But we've been active on a number of fronts in doing this in a difficult situation, have had a lot of success. And then moving into the future, our ability to maintain these tax rates at the targeted levels will depend on future tax-based growth. That's the biggest factor, as we've said a number of times. The priority that the board places on meeting these targets and other factors. And I have said a number of times that we're going to be able to keep our tax rate targets this year. Certainly, it looks like we'll be able to do it next year as well, even without a strong recovery. But this negative 6%, negative 5.9% does impact us moving into the future, and we're going to continue to need to have that on our radar, with regard to tax rates for the existing bond measures and the pace of the upcoming bonds. We've built in flexible programs, but down the road, which gives us some time to respond, but we will have to be thinking about our responses as we move into the future. So that's the extent of my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Olson. Do we have any public comment?
There are no requests to speak to the board.
Thank you. Board comment, Mr. Ramsey.
No, this is very good. This is really, for me, a perfunctory move. It's really just an additional layer of transparency for the public. And it's just really doing something that I think shows that we're proactive in doing things other districts don't do. And I just think it creates a build goodwill with those people in the county auditor's office and the county treasurer's office, and working with those things. The assessment piece is done. Gus has done his job. Now it's over to Campbell and it's over to Rusty. So I'm just going to move approval of this. This is excellent work. Thank you for the whole team to be here tonight. We are about as comprehensive and scrub every detail that tonight is just really a perfunctory move. So I move approval of this item.
There's a second. Mr. Reno seconds. Anybody else have a comment? Oh, yeah, Ms. Merriweather.
Yeah, I just want to thank K&N for this presentation also. And it really, like say, the resolution is here, but
right.
This really breaks it down and helps us understand it. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
You guys get to go home early tonight. Congratulations.
Page 7 is the winner here. Page 7 shows where we would be. Right? That's the big
We'll get there
page.
eventually. Let's stay positive and
Oh,
optimistic.
we'll get there.
We're taking steps to do that already.
That's right. Okay.